for joining us today. This is Athene's exclusive webcast for marketers only, featuring our Performance Elite product. My name is Tiffany Pearson, and I'm going to be your operator today. Before we get to the main event, I just wanted to quickly go over a few housekeeping items. The first is you will notice you are in listen-only mode, so your phones are muted. This is just to help with sound and quality control, but of course your questions are welcome. There is a question chat box on your toolbar, so if you have questions or comments, please send those through and we will cover them at the end of the presentation during our question and answer phase. The next thing is that we are recording today, so I know some of you do have questions when that comes up. We are recording, and the link to that recording will go out via email later this afternoon after we wrap up. And then finally, again, questions are welcome. We're live, so any questions that come through we will cover here at the end. So I'm going to turn things over to Mr. Ryan Leck. He is our Vice President, Division Sales Manager, and he's going to kick us off and get started with the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Tiffany, and good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for making time to join us this morning. Obviously, this is a very unique time in our history. We're experiencing everything related to coronavirus coupled with a volatile economy. But out of that, our hope today is that we can share with you a product enhancement to Performance Elite that creates an opportunity for sales and for growth for your customers. And so over the next 45 minutes or so, we're going to introduce you to some enhancements that we've made to the Performance Elite product by adding a strategy charge and strategy charge credit that you can take advantage to enhance the growth for your customers and for your producers. So with that, over the next 45 minutes, we're going to do an overview of the Performance Elite product enhancements. That's going to be handled by Ryan Behrens, who's one of our Vice Presidents of Actuary. And then we'll turn it over to Jason Masters in our marketing department, and he'll walk us through the associated sales collateral. We'll walk through what the updated illustrations look like and discuss the transition rules and deadlines. And then time permitting, we'll get to as many questions as we possibly can at the end. So again, thank you for making time this morning. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ryan Behrens.
All right, thanks, Ryan, and thanks everyone for joining us. As Ryan mentioned, I'm part of our actuarial team. I lead our product development function, so my team has been closely involved in implementing these enhancements and bringing them to market, and we're very excited to share them with you today. So a few things that I wanted to cover on this first slide. Really, at the outset, one thing I wanted to clarify is that with this launch, we're only adding features to Performance Elite, so nothing is going away. One way to frame that up is that if you like working with Performance Elite currently, all the same headlines are still there, and that's what we've outlined on the slide, but now we've added some additional tools to the toolbox. We're really excited about these enhancements and feel that they further strengthen Performance Elite's position as a leading accumulation solution in the market. We can go ahead and flip there, folks. So to dig into what the enhancements look like, starting next Monday, Performance Elite will offer additional strategy options for each index that's offered on the product. And these additional options will have a 1.75% annual charge associated with them in exchange for higher cap and participation rates. This concept is familiar from our BCA product suite. So those that work with that, it'll definitely seem very familiar. Same idea in place here. Electing the strategy charge option gets you additional accumulation potential in exchange for the charge. And this value proposition we feel is particularly powerful in a low interest rate environment like what we're experiencing right now, when crediting rates on other FIA products may be compressed. And this gives people some additional accumulation potential to take advantage of over the life of their product. The headline story is pretty straightforward when you see the rate sheet, and we'll look at rates later in the deck, but there are a few additional themes that we've focused on in bringing this to market that I wanted to outline here. First of all, there are now 19 strategy options available in the Performance Elite product. So we want to make sure that we provide tools that you can use to help your customers understand the key decision points in this strategy lineup. And then second, we realize that some people may have inherent aversion to charges, just from a philosophical standpoint, and in particular may be hesitant about a charge of 1.75%. So we're really going to be promoting the fact that you can blend the charge and no charge strategies to create a customized profile that can really be dialed into an individual customer's needs and preferences. And the last point that I wanted to emphasize is we strongly believe in the value proposition associated with the strategy charge options, but we also acknowledge the additional risk that they carry. Namely, account values have the potential to go down year over year if the index isn't performing, and that's different than kind of the classic FIA story when the strategy charge isn't in the picture. So to preserve downside protection over the length of the withdrawal charge period, we've also added a feature called the strategy charge credit, and Ryan alluded to that, and we'll walk through that on a later slide and make sure that you understand the mechanics of that feature. So now the thing everybody's been waiting for and most eager to see, we wanted to show you what our launch rates are going to look like. So again, these are effective next Monday when we roll out these enhancements. And this first slide shows what the rates look like, and these are the headline that everybody was eager to see from this presentation. I'm sure there are several powerful stories here that I wanted to highlight. First one, probably the number that jumps off the page the most, is the 195% par rate on the 2-year BNP MAT 5 strategy. As you continue down the page with the other exclusive indices, the NASDAQ FC index, 145% participation rate, and the AI-powered U.S. equity index at 170. So these are all very strong numbers. Also wanted to highlight that all three of those indices offer participation rates over 100% on the 1-year strategies. And then down at the bottom of the page, when you add the strategy charge, you can increase the cap on the S&P point-to-point strategy to 7.5%. So all very exciting stories there. I also wanted to highlight that the no charge strategies remain quite competitive, and those rates are still very compelling. And then one detail that I wanted to highlight, it's not one of the headline stories necessarily, but the 2-year version of the S&P 8% risk control index, existing Performance Elite product uses a spread as the crediting lever on that product, and we're changing that to a participation rate with this launch and with the introduction of the strategy charge. So hopefully that is just a little bit cleaner so that the entire index lineup is either cap or participation rate. We flip ahead to the PE10 rates, pretty much nothing real. All right, I'll continue talking through this slide while we get everything switched over to the view that we'd like. So the mechanics of the strategy charge calculation are as follows. At the beginning of each year, the charge is calculated based on the account value at that time at the 1.75% rate, and then it's split into 12 equal installments and deducted monthly over the course of the year. And then the interest credit at the end of the year is based on the AV that's left at that point and the index performance subject to the applicable cap or participation rate. So in this example, in the first year, you have $1,750 in charges come out. You have a 7.5% interest credit that amounts to $73.68, and you end with an account value of $105,618. And in the second year, the dollar amount of the charge is $18.48. And that's taken out monthly again, and then the index was flat that year, so there was no credit, so the account value ends lower than where it started because of the deduction of the charge. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts of how the calculation works. The next slide will highlight what this looks like hypothetically over a longer time horizon. All right, and this view is also to illustrate the mechanics of the calculation, but also to help really highlight the value proposition of the strategy charge option. So the way it's set up is that it takes the most recent 10 years of S&P history from 2010 to 2019 and compares what things would look like with a 4% cap with no charge versus a 7.5% cap with the 175 strategy charge, assuming that you start with 100,000 in premium, no premium bonus or anything, just to simplify the math. And so over this time horizon, you have a pretty varied selection of index performance. You have 3 years where the index was flat or down. So in those years, the accumulated value for the no charge column stays flat, but it goes down for the with charge option. But even with 3 out of the 10 years being down years for the index, cumulatively the performance of the strategy charge option outpaces the performance of the no charge option by about 5.7%. So again, this highlights the additional value that comes with that additional accumulation potential in exchange for the charge. And so the title there is very appropriate in terms of the charge getting you more bang for your buck. So the next slide will revisit the theme that I mentioned in my introduction regarding simplifying the decision making with 19 strategy options in the picture. So again, that full list of 19 options might look kind of overwhelming if it's just put on a page and put it in front of somebody, particularly somebody that's not familiar with the ins and outs of the product. So we have distilled that down into a 3-step process, and we'll talk about it later in terms of some of the marketing collateral that's being created. So really, even with the 19 options, what it boils down to is 3 decision points. First decision point is thinking about the index or the indices that you want exposure to. The second decision point is whether you like a 1-year index term period or a 2-year index term period. And the third decision point is charge versus no charge strategies. So again, those are the 3 kind of decision layers or decision points that are important. It's important to note that these decisions are not mutually exclusive, so you're not choosing just one at each step. You can customize this as much as desired, and if somebody wants to use all 19 options, then they definitely can. But also for those that want a more simplified way to navigate this, this is a framework that we hope will be helpful. The next slide is kind of just a follow-up on some of those ideas and considerations for each of those layers of the decision-making process. So the first one, again, the index lineup for 5 indices plus a fixed option. And we really feel like we've got a powerful index lineup with complementary choices that are really well suited to exist next to each other. Hopefully, you've had a chance to take a look at some of the marketing materials that we've put out recently on the power of diversification across our index lineup. And that same idea is still intact and still a very important part of the Performance Elite story. The second point, the 1 versus 2-year term periods. Again, there's different dimensions for 1 versus 2-year in terms of the downside protection and the upside potential that goes along with them. Of course, you can mix 1 and 2-year strategies. And the other thing that I wanted to mention is that you can still implement the strategy of kind of laddering the 2-year buckets by putting money in the 2-year buckets and 1-year buckets at the point of sale, and then moving into the 2-year buckets on the odd years with a portion of that money, so that you have the laddered 2-year strategies as you move through the life of the product. So that ability is still there and still a valuable tool for people to use. And then the charge versus no charge strategy. Again, I mentioned this previously, but you can tailor kind of your effective charge level, so to speak, to anything between 0 and 1.75% based on the allocation between the charge and no charge strategies. So these tools all provide a lot of flexibility at the point of sale in terms of customizing what the product looks like for an individual customer, but it also provides flexibility over the life of the product. So none of those decisions are locked in. They can be reevaluated every time that you come upon a renewal decision point. So you can reallocate between indices, you can reallocate between 1 and 2-year buckets, and you can reallocate between charge and no charge strategies over the life of the product. And again, that just adds even more flexibility for customers to take advantage of. The next few slides are some additional rate and performance metrics that you will all ultimately see in our updated marketing materials as well. So these are familiar exhibits probably that come out of a marketing piece that we've now updated to contain the strategy charge options as well. So these exhibits look at annualized backtested returns, net of strategy charges. So the comparison is apples to apples between the charge and no charge options. And this really further highlights the value of the charge options when you compare the numbers in the bottom chart versus the top chart. Even with netting out the 1.75% strategy charges from those return numbers, you do see higher average returns over time from the options with the strategy charge. The other thing that I wanted to highlight on this slide, and it'll be a good tie-in to the next slide, is the guaranteed column of that bottom table. You see zeros everywhere. So even though if the index is consistently returning a zero every year over the life of the product, and you have the 175 charge coming out, the strategy charge credit and the true up that provides means that your annualized growth rate is still 0% over the duration of the withdrawal charge period. So again, it preserves the 0% floor over that horizon, and that's why all the numbers show up as 0% in the guaranteed scenario here. So that's an important element. And again, when we move to the next slide here, I'll illustrate how the mechanics of all that works. So the strategy charge credit is the other feature that's been added in addition to the charge itself. And it's really meant to be a safety net for the additional risk associated with using these strategies that have the optional charge associated with them. What it is a one-time calculation at the end of the withdrawal charge period, and it just compares cumulative strategy charges to cumulative interest credits over that horizon. If the strategy charges exceed the interest credits, then the difference is applied to the AV to make up that difference and sort of provide a true up, as we've mentioned previously. So what this does is it preserves a 0% floor over the withdrawal charge period. In the example here, we assume that $15,000 of strategy charges have come out and only $13,000 of interest credits have been received. So the strategy charge credit is equal to $2,000. And that returns the AV to the original 100,000 at the end of the withdrawal charge period. So we feel like this is a really important story relative to kind of the bigger picture for why people use FIAs and the demand for principal protection. And again, it helps balance the additional risk that's taken by electing these strategy charge options. There are a couple of details that are important to keep in mind. One is in the footnote at the bottom of the slide. If an excess withdrawal is taken over the course of the withdrawal charge period, so something above the free withdrawal amount, then the strategy charge credit goes away. And then the other thing I wanted to clarify is that this is only focused on the strategy charges and comparing those to interest credits. It does not, this calculation doesn't include the rider charges for the plus rider. That's a totally separate concept. It's not part of this calculation. So with that wraps up the content that I wanted to cover in terms of the nuts and bolts of the updates to the product and some of the key stories and the key themes that we hope that you'll take away today and put into use as you start working with the updated product. So with that, I will hand it over to Jason to take you through some of the additional marketing tools that we're creating with this launch.
Thanks, Ryan. All right, so on the next slide, you'll see that from a collateral standpoint, as Ryan mentioned at the top of the webinar, all of the product features that you're used to with Performance Elite will continue as is. We're only expanding that. So with that in mind, we've really taken all of the existing collateral and we've incorporated in these changes. So we've built in information regarding the strategy charge feature and what that provides, as well as the strategy charge credit on the back end. So again, consumer brochure, the product guides, rate sheets, all of our sales concept pieces as applicable have been updated with all of the new information regarding these new features being added to Performance Elite. In addition to that, we've actually created 2 new sales concept pieces specific to these additions. The first one, finding value in a charge. Really what that's going to do is give you a side-by-side comparison, looking at a strategy without the additional strategy charge and then one with the charge, and showing really what that additional charge can bring you. It's not just a charge that Athene is assessing to increase profitability, but really it's a straight pass through to the consumer, as Ryan mentioned earlier, looking at the additional growth opportunity that provides in the rates. This piece will really highlight the strength of that and put that on paper to give to a consumer there, showing them side by side, what that the extra value a strategy charge can bring them. In addition to that, we have a new piece that's going to be focused around choosing the allocation. So as Ryan mentioned, we have kind of those 3 decision layers there, choosing the index, choosing the index term, and then choosing the charge or no charge, or how to blend between those two. This piece will actually walk consumers through that 1, 2, 3 decision-making process. Both of these pieces will actually give a nod to the fact that you can blend the charge as well, so you can get the client to a level of charge what they're comfortable with, given the outcomes or return expectations that they have and what they're striving for. So a couple new pieces of collateral to go with all of the existing pieces that we already have in existence today. If you could advance to the next slide. An additional feature then is on illustrations. So what you'll see is if you're used to building illustrations out there, you'll see kind of 2 sections of the illustration program on the inputs. We've broken it out to the no charge versions at the top. So as you're building out that allocation on an illustration, all the no charge options are at the top, and then with charge options at the bottom. And then when you actually, when that illustration is generated, you'll be able to see on the page that shows what strategies you're in, and this will be a big feature that we think will go along with the sales concepts. You'll be able to see that blended strategy charge. So if you notice there on the bottom screenshot, the bottom line there, you can see in this case, if you did a 50-50 split between the S&P cap without a charge and the S&P cap with a charge, the blended charge comes out to 88 basis points. So 50-50 between charge and no charge reduces that strategy charge under the 1% level. So you'll be able to play around with the numbers there to get that charge level again to where the client's comfortable with, and that'll be part of the illustration enhancements that go into effect next week. If you could flip to the next page, these are going to be similar to what you're used to on the diversification pages and the illustrations, really showing you all of the individual strategy options and the percentage of scenarios that either yielded positive gains or a risk of 0. So what we've done is we've just added another layer to this with the charge options built in. So in this case, showing the 1-year strategies, the top 5 are no charge. The bottom 5 include the strategy charge option there. You can see obviously the performance numbers do increase as expected when you add the strategy charge in. And then at the very bottom, you get the even allocation to all 1-year strategies. So that includes both charge and no charge options. So again, just another enhancement on the illustration program. The next slide will be the same thing, only with the 2-year strategies. So you'll be able to see, again, if you do a 2-year point-to-point, the scenario percentage chance of positive return or risk of 0, and the additional upside that the strategy charge does provide there over the course of a 2-year term. And then same thing at the bottom, if you have the even allocation to all 2-year strategies, what that looks like from a diversification standpoint. You could advance one more slide there. We'll get into the operations and timeline of things. So as Ryan mentioned, one of the changes we have with this is that the 2-year S&P daily risk control strategy, the 8% volatility control strategy, the 2-year version of that is switching over the course of this product enhancement from a spread strategy to a participation rate based strategy. So that will actually take all of our volatility control strategies will be based around a participation rate. Some additional state changes, a couple things here for Ohio. First of all, the Performance Elite 10, good news there on the Performance Elite 10 Plus, the premium bonus is increasing to 8% as a result of this. One thing with Ohio as well is that the Performance Elite 15 will no longer be available in the state of Ohio effective on May 11th. So just a heads up there. We'll get into the transition rules here shortly. One very important thing here for existing producers. So any producers that are already writing Performance Elite today or have taken Performance Elite product training in the past, they will not need to take any new product training for these enhancements. So while the training has been updated to reflect this information, existing Performance Elite producers or anybody that has taken the product training will not need to retake anything there. So a huge win from a training perspective without any disruption to business for producers that are already in writing the product as it is today. Form updates. So with this, of course, we have new strategy, disclosure, and allocation forms. Certificate of disclosures or CODs are going to be available. And then in Florida, we have the product comparison form. All of those forms will go live on Friday afternoon after 4 p.m. Central Time on Athene Connect. As far as transition rules, applications signed on or before Friday, May 8th would be basically using the product as it is today. Those applications have to be received on or before May 22nd. For applications signed after May 8th, so essentially starting over the weekend and including into launch day on Monday, those would be based on the new version of the product with the strategy charge options available. So they do need to be on the new paperwork there. So that includes, again, the strategy disclosure and allocation form, the COD, and for those in Florida, the product comparison form. So just a heads up on that for any business in the pipeline today. Application signed on or before May 8th, get the current version of the product, and then after that would be the new version of the product. So a couple of important updates there on the transition and operations side of things. But with that, I will turn things back over to Ryan Lex.
Thanks, Jason. Thanks, Ryan Behrens. We've got some questions out there. So again, feel free to type questions up and send them here. We'll try to get to as many as we can. First question came in. We'll go to Ryan Behrens. Is it possible to price this as there's only a fee in a crediting term where there's a gain?
Yeah, so that would really be a slightly different design. That would essentially be a spread design, which there are products out there that use it. That's one way to achieve something similar to this, but you really do get additional upside potential or more powerful accumulation potential from the charge, and that's the design that we wanted to pursue.
Great, thanks. Is the charge an annual charge or per participation period? In other words, if an annual charge, the 2-year charge would be actually 3.5 for the participation period or 1.75 on a single year?
Yeah, it's an annual rate, so that's accurate that it would be essentially 3.5% for a 2-year crediting period.
What about the withdrawal charge after withdrawal charge period?
I think this question relates to the strategy charge credit. And the fact that it's a one-time calculation at the end of the withdrawal charge period. So it is just a one-time calculation. So if for people that continue to hold their contract after the expiration of the withdrawal charge period and continue to use the strategy charge options, there's not an additional true up later. It's really meant to be an additional layer of protection over the course of the withdrawal charge period.
Yeah, so hey, Ryan, just to clarify that, so the true up after the withdrawal charge period, the true up goes away?
It's just a one-time calculation that's done at the end of the withdrawal charge period. And if you have had more strategy charges than interest credits, then there will be a true up that goes into the AV at that point in time, but it only happens once. Gotcha.
Okay, thanks. Are there going to be any new suitability considerations on replacements as PE plus with a charge will be in excess of 2%?
I think we'll need to follow up on that one. I'm not 100% sure on an answer to that, so we'll follow up after the call.
Yeah, and I've got the individual who asked that question, so we'll circle back with them. Is there a charge for the 8% bonus in Ohio?
Yeah, so that comes with the plus version of the product. So that carries a 95 basis point rider charge, same as it does in all other states. So really the clarification there is that the premium bonus with the plus version was previously 7% in Ohio, and it's updated to 8% with this launch.
Great, thanks, Ryan. Any other questions out there? I think that's it that's come through. I think for the most part, it's a pretty straightforward addition to the product suite. I know one of the questions that came up a few times was on producers needing to take a new PST, and we addressed that in the procedure updates. So that's good news. I hope for all of you that there's no additional PST required. I think the transition rules are pretty straightforward, and the timeline. So seeing no other questions. Oh, let me just see. There's one just came in. What happens if the client dies? Will the charge true up at death?
No, it's not tied to anything other than the expiration of the withdrawal charge period. So it's really just, again, that one-time calculation that happens if the contract's still in force at that time.
Gotcha. Thanks, Ryan, and again, thanks, Jason. Seeing no other questions, I'm going to go ahead and just again reiterate to everybody on the call. Number one, thanks for making time. Just a reminder on Performance Elite. Again, as a product, it's got a great premium bonus. We've got market-leading crediting rates, got powerful liquidity features, and now we're offering into an additional opportunity for growth with some additional fee for rate to be able to buy some rate with the strategy charge. So hopefully, you find that an exciting new offering to promote to your clients, to your producers. Again, if you should have any questions, please feel free to reach out to your relationship managers that work with your individual IMOs, or certainly feel free to call our sales desk. Otherwise, again, I just want to thank everybody. Please stay healthy out there. Thanks for your partnership. Thanks for your business. We want to continue to earn it every day. So hopefully you find this as another arrow in your quiver to promote Athene to your producers. With that, have a great rest of your week, and happy selling.